Welcome to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Kennedy, and I'm here to help you become the very best version of yourself. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. Today I'm joined by fellow trainer and coach here in Melbourne, Jeremy Gleeson. Jeremy is an extremely knowledgeable individual. He's helped so many people achieve their health and fitness goals, but at the same time, he practices what he preaches. And I really like the way he goes about things and love his content. I just love the fact that he's out there to add value and help as many people as he can. So I'm joined by Jeremy on the show today. We have a really great conversation around all things to do with health and fitness, whether it be nutrition, training, performance, how to overload during lockdown, the way that Jeremy communicates with his clients to make sure they're seeing their results. He's also the founder of the Sweat Lift Method, which we'll touch on in today's episode as well. I'll have a link to all of Jeremy's socials in the show notes so you guys can go and give him a follow as well. Big thank you to him for joining me on this episode, and I hope you guys take a lot of value away from our conversation. If you do, I'd love for you to take a screenshot of this episode on your phone, post it up on your Instagram story for me, tag myself, tag Jeremy as well. Again, we'd love to hear your feedback and hope you enjoy the show. Jeremy, welcome to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. We've just had a nice little chat before we hit record, so I think this one's going to be a cracker. So thanks for joining me, mate.
It's a pleasure, mate. I've been watching you from afar. Well, congratulations on the podcast, and I feel privileged to be on.
No, mate, absolute pleasure, and congratulations on all the work you're putting in lately and the success you're seeing with the business and with the clients you're working with, man. And like I said, I reckon it's always good when you kind of get two like-minded people together just to have a conversation and see what comes out of it. I always actually say to clients and friends, sometimes I wish I just had, like, as creepy as it sounds, just like a voice recorder with me at all times to record like half the conversations that I have, because it's the shit that people want to hear. Like the conversations that you think are just between two people is often like the best shit that comes out, and I just sometimes wish I had it recorded. So hopefully we get some good shit today.
Yeah, I think like on that, as a coach, like you probably just obsess over coaching or fitness all the time, and so sometimes I like think, gee, there's no one else that's on my wavelength. I'm always like going to sleep thinking about fitness, wake up, do fitness. So it's like
somehow every conversation ends up tying back into something to do with the gym or eating well or something. And I wanted to ask you to start off, like, obviously for those that follow your content, and for anyone listening, I'll have the links to Jeremy's stuff in the show notes below. But anyone that follows your content sees the way you train now, and your physique and your philosophy around training in particular. How has that evolved, like, over the years? Went from since you first started in the industry, or even just getting in the gym yourself to better yourself physically and mentally. How has your whole philosophy on training changed over the years to be at the point where it is now?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's changed quite a bit. Like early days, like, I don't know, you're probably similar. Like as a young teenager, just wanting to put on some size. And I just love.
I'm still there.
I think you're very modest. I think you just sort of, I got the bug early, like, and I think it was great in some respects, but then also, like, I think mentally I probably was almost too obsessive to the point where it took over my life, like, a little bit too much. So around that time, I was sort of training to beat myself up in a way. Like I was it was good because I was able to put in the time, and as you would know, like, there is a certain foundation that you sort of need to get the results that you're looking for a lot of the time. So you've got to be able to put in the work. But I think, early days, it was much like just trial and error. Like it was just sort of, I was a sponge for all types of training, and there was a big focus around performance as well. And actually, I think that's one problem with, when I think about it, our sort of, I guess, society, there isn't probably enough. And I guess that's why we come in the importance of, like, our role, but there isn't enough importance placed on health and fitness, particularly from a strength and conditioning point of view, in just the education system. It's either like you rock up and you do the beep test, or you play a sport, and then that's sort of the relationship you have with fitness. And if you're not good at any of that, then it's sort of like it's not for you in a sense. But I over the years have slowly. I mean, I've been through my own sort of injuries as well, which
Yeah.
at the time was pretty bad, but it's also made me stronger for it and more like aware of
Yeah.
my body. So,
Were any of those injuries, like, do you think, from a lack of development from the physical point of view? Like, I mean, I'll use myself as an example. Early days, like I was doing it. It's very similar to you. I mean, it's funny how I speak to so many people that are in the industry that have a very similar story in terms of just fucking trying anything and everything, making all the mistakes, going way too hard, and eventually you kind of come around to a point where you start to learn from reliable information sources and stuff like that, and it all starts to make sense. But I was training my ass off, but like, to be perfectly honest, like not doing the right shit, particularly for my lower body. So my whole thing was to improve performance and as an athlete and whatnot, but a lot of it, I just wasn't doing the right shit. And that's where things like soft tissue injuries and hamstring injuries and all that type of shit come about. So was there a turning point with any of those injuries that did lead you to do
it just honestly, it sounds like talking into a mirror right now, because I think there's a big difference in the way that I was training, and like I wanted to perform as an athlete as well.
Yeah.
And I was training just the muscles that I could see in the mirror. Like there was no posterior chain, there was no legs, like there was and it was also, there was no understanding of like a proper training load, so it was literally just beating myself up, and it did take me some bad sort of stress fractures and hamstring injuries and all that to sort of literally just slow me down and go, hang on, like you don't need to. I think in my head I thought that I needed to do this, but fitness is so much about this every day, so I think that's probably how my approach has changed over the years. And the more educated that I've got, I've started to realize that there is an approach that you don't have to, like, as much as I loved it at the time, I was also in the back of my head, I was like, I can't sustain this. Like I was training twice a day, multiple hours, like eating like a Nazi. Like it was sort of like, there is another way. There has to be another way,
Yeah. I think, I had a very similar experience in terms of, you almost get to the point where you wear it like as a badge of honor. You're like, fuck, I am working harder than anyone else. And like, if I do the most outrageous shit, there's no way that I'm not going to see results. And until you, like you said, you get to this point where you're like, fuck, if I just put in some really good quality work, like just enough to see results, and I keep doing that consistently over time, I'm going to see far better results, enjoy it a shitload more. It's going to be a lot more sustainable. And kind of brings you on to this next topic, which kind of aligns perfectly. I think that's a problem with a lot of people today. Just, your average Joe that comes in to see you or I and wants to see results, is they think that it requires like cardio every day, like training twice a day, cutting out all the food that you love the most, like just running yourself into the ground. And the association mentally with losing fat is just negative. It's like, fuck, I can't wait till this is over so I can go back to normal. Whereas it really doesn't have to be that way. So like, aside from the training aspect, what do you kind of see now when you have a potential client come to you that really sticks out to you, that is like such an easy change that you wish more people knew?
Yeah, I honestly think that is, like, you've hit the nail on the head there. And this is something that I advocate to all my clients. And it's just about being 1% better, because a lot of people, and I'm sure you're the same, will come to you and think, oh, okay, I'm going to give fitness a crack, so I'm going to have no life now. And it's sort of like they think that
it's an on and off switch.
Yeah, like they think, oh, okay, I need to go really hard with my training. I need to go on this juice cleanse diet. I need to, sacrifice my social life. I need to, like, to give like some perspective in terms of like being a professional athlete at the top of your game. There is some sacrifice that needs to happen, but for the majority of people, in terms of general population, like just being able to move the needle a little bit in like the four pillars, I call them the four pillars in your life in terms of training. Let's make sure you're in a program that actually you're able to not only adhere to but buy into, so make it sustainable. And for a lot of people, it's 3 times a week. Like if you can hit your strength training 3 times a week, that's going to be so much more beneficial for you than smashing yourself on the treadmill every day and hating it. Like, And then in terms of nutrition, just having awareness of what's going in and out of your body. I think a lot of people just don't have an awareness. Like they don't actually know what they're putting into their body. As soon as like, even if you just get people to write down what they're eating and having a look at like what they're putting in their mouth, like sometimes it takes like a little change here and a little change there, like consistently over a long period of time. I think that's the other message as well. The whole get quick fit scheme sells well because it sounds good. Like, I want to get results now. I want to get results fast, but it's not very sexy for you and I to say, hey, just make these small changes over 6 months and you'll be where you want to be. Like, so I think that's probably one thing that I advocate to my clients in terms of buying into a lifestyle approach. You don't need to tick all the boxes straight away. It's about making little changes and being prepared to be, I guess, just ready for the journey. Like, enjoy the process.
100%. You hit the nail on the head there. I reckon, I can't remember what the saying is, and fucking I'm the worst at saying, so I'll 100% fuck this up. But it's like so many people have the opposite mindset around what it actually is. So they think that 80% of what they do is giving them the results, but in actual fact, it's like 20% of what you do gives you 80% of the results if it's done correctly. And like I mentioned before, it's like people have this on and off switch. And that's the difficult thing for people like yourself and I, is that like the quick get fit quick schemes sell, but they're just not sustainable. So it's for you and I, it's about trying to find a way to, as you said, get people to buy in, to provide something that's exciting enough for people to jump on board from a business perspective, to a point where you can kind of scale it, but also stick to, like what our kind of values and I guess morals are around training and nutrition, making sure you're not just purely doing it just to make a quick dollar and giving people shitty advice. In terms of that,
I think on that, before you go on, I'll just further that in saying that, like, one thing that I often say, because you have a lot of people that come to you and go, I want to do this, or I've tried this or whatever, and like they'll ask you, I don't know, if you have someone that wants to challenge that approach, I often just say, like, if you're going to do something for 2 weeks, like, or if you're not going to do it for a year, why do it for 2 weeks? So if it's like, for example, if it's a juice cleanse for 2 weeks, like, that you can't maintain that for 12 weeks, but that also goes with your training. I think obviously we advocate, a similar style of training because it works, like to prioritize strength training, to improve, lean body composition. I think that also isn't for everyone. So it's about talking to your prospective client or whoever it may be and go, let's find out what you enjoy. Let's work out what you can adhere to. It doesn't need to be, some secret sauce, or, it just needs to be something that can fit into your lifestyle every week.
And there is, a lot more than one way to skin a cat. So increasing that lean muscle mass, for someone like yourself, it might be getting in the gym and doing your big lifts and maybe crossing more towards, after the performance stuff, crossing more over towards a hypertrophy bodybuilding type style of training, because it might be something that you or I enjoy. Whereas for someone else, and like you said, they might fucking hate that. And I talk about this a lot, particularly with exercise in the gym. Like, the amount of people that hate squats but rock up every week and do them, or half-ass them, and sit there at work all day thinking about how shit their squats are going to be. Like, there's a lot more exercise you can throw in to create the same movement and provide the same stimulus that's not a squat. How do you, like, what's your approach with a client early days to help them try and buy in? So I think it'd be fair to say most trainers have experienced certain clients who rock up and have their own idea of how it's all going to work, and when it doesn't align with what they're used to, it can be very hard to get them to buy in to your approach. Like, what's your approach with a new client to get them to mentally buy into the process and not the quick fix?
Yeah, I think for me, in my experience, like, it's about creating small wins from the get-go. So, and that'll look different for everyone. So it's about understanding who the client is and, like, meeting them at their level. So firstly, I'll get to know the client first, and sometimes that can be hard. Like, it might take a month to understand someone. Like, some people are really good at opening up and giving you a good depiction of sort of what their fitness journey has been like. But the quicker you can understand the client, the better you can start to create small wins for them, and that'll be different depending on who it is. Like if it's someone who's starting out, just getting that post-workout feeling is a great small win for them. Like that sort of moves the needle for them in terms of feeling like they're already seeing progress. For someone who is an elite athlete, it might be introducing them to a new style of training, or creating a new challenge, or on that sort of thing. So I think early days it's about creating wins, and then once I do that, in terms of instilling motivation and creating buy-in, it's about reverse engineering back from a key goal. So trying to work out, like, I think for a while there early in my career, when I probably didn't know what I was doing as much, and I was probably thought my head was like this, and I had all the answers. I think I was just sort of pissing in the wind a little bit and just making it up as I was going along. But then the more confident and the more educated that I become, I'll make sure that I'll sit down with each client and work out what's the goal here. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the focus. And what I often do with, in fact, I'll give the example of the summer challenge I'm doing at the moment. So everyone might have an end goal, but it's more than the end goal. It's like, who do we get to become while achieving the goal? And then it's like it ends up being the more exciting and the more important part. And I'll get sometimes, well, this is what I've done with this challenge. Everyone has to write a letter to themselves that they'll open at the end of the person that they want to be. So reading that letter is like the reward, in terms of like, hey, like I'm here, regardless if I've got the goal or not, I've actually turned into this type of person. So I think for me, it probably comes down to those two things: just creating small wins, and then being able to reverse engineer back from who we want to be throughout the process. And then that can create, like, what I've found in terms of just buy-in every day. Like, because some days, like, are going to be hard, and some days are going to be good. Some, like, progress isn't linear. Like, you're going to have some days where you actually go backwards. But what you can control is the person you get to be each day, and that's a really rewarding experience. So
Shit, yeah, I love that. You mentioned a good point there in terms of really understanding the client, and that's something that I've definitely gotten better with over time as well. I'm sure you're the same. It's in the end of the day, it's kind of very similar to coaching a team of athletes, particularly when you've got a bunch of clients. It's like you can't go in expecting everyone to respond the same way. I was watching what was I watching yesterday? It was the special that I think Australian Story did on Luke Longley, because he kind of got cut out of the Last Dance doco with MJ. And Phil Jackson was talking about how, like, with Longley, he's not the type of guy you can walk up to and just demand orders at and expect him to be able to go out there and do it and take it well. Like, he had to figure out specific ways how to communicate with each athlete in a way that they're going to respond best. And I think with the world of health and fitness is exactly the same. It's like, getting clients to focus on specific goals each week. It might be, obviously the idea is for them to adhere to their training and nutrition 100%, but it might be going into this week saying, all right, I just want you to focus on drinking enough water every day. And, like, in their mind, that creates momentum, because they get to Sunday night and they go, fuck yeah, I've ticked off the water every day this week. So now they start to stack those habits as the time goes on, and you can get a much better response instead of just going, here's this shit, do it all. And you'll see results, I promise. It just doesn't exactly work like that.
I think you're right.
Communication side of things is important.
Well, that's like where I found, I guess, a real challenge recently, and great pride in terms of getting better as a coach, just understanding people and being able to communicate to, like, because for a while there I was like, oh, my perfect client is A, and I only want to train A. But now, like, it's about, hey, I like the challenge of being able to take on anyone and, like, trying to move the needle for them. So I'm sure you're the same. So, and it's something that you can take beyond coaching into other aspects of your life as well. So,
How have you approached the motivation side of things? I think it's fair to say everyone over the past 18 months or so has struggled at some point with motivation, probably a lot of people more so than others, but I don't think there's literally anyone that I know that at some point hasn't kind of been lacking motivation, and I guess the desire to do what they know they need to do. So on the days where you wake up and you just can't be bothered, or sick of lockdown, or you let a little bit of negativity get inside your head, like what's your approach to making sure that the job still gets done and that you kind of bring yourself back on track?
Yeah, I think that on that, like I'm definitely someone who's wavered in their motivation recently, and like a lot of people probably look to us as coaches and go, "Oh, you should always be motivated, like that's your job." But we're only human. I think I've worked really hard at my habits, like in terms of, and that's something that I think came actually quite naturally getting into the gym as like early days. And the more I reflect, the more I realize that my life is just, I mean, I've actually got a quote right here: all people are the same, it's just their habits that differ. It's from Confucius, and it was like something that just sort of rang true to me. So like on the days where I'm not feeling great, I know that I'll just accept it and go, okay, this is one of those days. And sometimes the sicko in me takes it as a challenge. I'm like, I just want to prove myself wrong here. And like, if it's raining outside, I'm like, even though I'm not supposed to be running today, I'm just going to go for one anyway. Because I like the challenge. But I think on that as well, the habits that I've created and the habits that I encourage my members and my clients to create in terms of all aspects of the health and fitness, from training to nutrition to recovery to a balance in lifestyle and all of the above. I think once they start to create those habits in those areas of their lives, then they don't change. So on days that you're feeling bad, like they're still going to be there. And what that can do is it can still set you up for a little win. It doesn't mean that you have to completely write your day off. So it might mean that you might struggle a little bit more during your workout or this or that, but at least everything that led up to that point has assisted you in some way. And then on the days where motivation is high, it's like the best day ever, because like
it all comes easy.
There, it all comes really easy. So I think that's why my life is, I guess, I wouldn't say it's like a carbon copy each day, but there's certain I'm sure you're the same in terms of winning the morning, in terms of things that you do before starting a podcast, things that you do before training, things that you do before bed. Like all these little things add up to create a foundation which, regardless of the environment, will set you up for success.
100%. And what are some of those, if you don't mind me asking, some of those like non-negotiables look like for you on a daily basis at the moment? Like whether it is winning in the morning or prior to training or before bed, like what are some of the things that at the moment are just part of your daily habits?
Yeah, so I will always start. I like to sort of label it as start in the morning on my terms, because I think it's really easy to get distracted by your phone or the TV or whatever might be going on next door or whatever. I don't know, but so I'll always start the day on my terms with a stretch. I always start with a stretch in the morning, and a little bit of breath work, and then I'll read. And I'll try and keep the reading as something that isn't involved with fitness, just so I'm having some sort of balance in my life. And then a cold shower, and that usually just kickstarts my day. And then I'll sit down and I'll work out what actually needs to get done for the day. And one of the things that's helped me recently is, and this is something that I learned from Ben Crow, in terms of everyone's got a list. And sometimes, like, I'm the type of person that would get a bit overwhelmed by my list, or it would get too long, or I would set the bar too high. And I think one thing that's helped me recently is being able to look at that list and labeling them as A, B's, and C's. So A's are things that you should do, and you're like, you have to get done that day. Sorry, you must do. A's are things that you must do. So like non-negotiable. So that's why I'll try and start the day with those A's. Like, let's try and get some of the more challenging, most important tasks done first. B's are the things you should do. So if you get all your A's done, then move to your B's, and then you move to your C's after that, which are things that you could do. So it's not the end of the world if you don't get them done. Even if you don't get your B's and C's done, at least you got your A's done, and then you can call it a day. I think another thing, like, and something that I would call it a habit, essentially, that I work in 45-minute blocks. Like, I don't know what it is, but I can't concentrate for, I don't know what it is, longer than sort of like an hour. So like, even if it's getting up for 5 minutes to, I don't know, walk around the block, and then I'll come back and I'll sit down and I'll do some more work. So I think that helps me to keep a fresh mind. I'll also use
Have you seen any content by Brendan Burchard?
I was just about to touch on that. So I learned a technique from him from his book, the release meditation technique.
How good is it?
For anybody that doesn't know, it's basically, everyone's got a million things to do, and rather than just transitioning from one to the next without really thinking about it, like it's about, like, so for example, after this podcast, I've got some emails to do. Rather than just getting straight into them, I'll just close my eyes, say, like, you don't necessarily have to say a release, but it's about just some deep breaths, like basically drop any tension that you've taken on from the task previously. And then before you open your eyes, you set the intention of how you want to attack the next task. And I use the example of one of my clients who's quite busy and, quite a bit of responsibility in terms of business sense. And just that alone, like, had a profound effect on his life, because before he walks in the door to see his kids, he'll sit in his car, release any tension that he's had from work throughout the day, and set the intention to be the father that he wants to be when he walks in. And let's not talk about, like, I mean, we can sit here and talk about reps and sets and how do you get the best workout. Sometimes little things like that can actually move the needle more than, the perfect exercise, if we like to call it one, like.
I think the clarity side of things is just huge. And it's something that so many, I often talk about how so many of us are just on autopilot. And I catch myself in that same mode, like, quite often, particularly in lockdown, because we're doing so many things in the same area. And I've found the release technique super beneficial while I am doing everything, recording a podcast, training, eating, sleeping, all the rest of it, all in the same environment pretty much. It's a game changer. I think the biggest benefit I've seen with that release technique is particularly when it involves another person. I often, when I'm explaining to people, I use the example of getting stuck in traffic or whatever and just fucking fuming in your car. And then you're going in for a coffee with a mate, or you're going into a business meeting, or you're going to meet a client, and you carry that negative energy. And you would know this, like, when you're around people enough, you get to a point where you really feed off other people's energy. And it just makes a world of difference when you can go in with that clear head and intention of exactly what you want to get out of the situation, but also what you want the other person to get out of it as well. Like, I've found with clients, it's like, how do I want this? It's kind of, you get into this mode where you're almost a bit selfish. Like, you're just worried about how you feel. But in the end of the day, like, for a client that's coming in, paying us to give them a service, like, we want to make sure that they feel incredible by the time they leave. Whereas if you're spending the whole time fucking worrying about a bill you got to pay, or an argument you've had with a friend or whatever, that doesn't carry across into the person that you're trying to help. So it's been a game changer. But
I think one thing, like, that we'll stay on the Brendan Burchard theme, was like, one thing that ties really well in with that, and that's helped me, is knowing who needs your A game. So, like, it works with the coaching really well, but like, just to your point, like, if you've got someone that you're coaching, or for even still, like, if you're coaching up with a mate for coffee, like, they're there for the friendship, like, so being like fully immersed in that, rather than actually worrying, like you said, about whatever's happened previously. So just knowing, like, not only who you want to be in each instance or each, like, facet of your life, but understanding, how can I be my best version? Yeah, that's the technique that's helped heaps.
Have you read any of Gabby Bernstein's books?
No, but it's been recommended to me quite a bit.
Yeah, The Universe Has Your Back is the first one that I think it was that one. There's two that I've read from her. I'll send you through a screenshot of both of them after this. But that is awesome. Like, slightly different vibe compared to Brendan's, but there's just so many useful techniques and stuff in her books that have just been kind of game changers. In terms of nutrition, obviously yourself as an athlete as well as a coach, you would know the importance of nutrition. But was that something that you always placed a big emphasis on? And if not, what was, I guess, the turning point or the realization of how important nutrition was for particularly like body composition results at any point?
I think I was very fortunate at a young age to have parents that were always really healthy. So we never had junk in the house. Like, eating takeout was a rarity, on special occasions. So I think in terms of my, I guess, base level of knowledge around nutrition was just something that just felt normal. It wasn't something I had to work at straight away. And I probably took that for granted a little bit. And it wasn't like probably until school where I realized like what other people were eating, or you go around to your mate's place and you're like, God. And it actually, my first relationship with food and understanding what good nutrition was like when I did, like, say, go over to a mate's place, or did go out and have like eat pretty poorly for a period of time, or you go out on holiday or something, and just the way that I felt afterwards, my body was just always so used to like a pretty well balanced, like good, like highly nutritious diet. So whenever I wavered in the other direction, I just hated the way it made me feel. And then on top of that, like through sport, like we were educated pretty heavily on the importance of eating for performance. And I guess, treating your body like a race car, like you wouldn't put shit petrol in it. And I'm sure you've used that analogy before. But I think that probably just laid the foundation for me. And because the training was there, I think that did enough to sort of meet like the physique goals that I wanted. And I think that's something that we touched on before. Like for a lot of people, it's just about improving one thing, like, and being consistent with it. I think more recently, especially as I've been working, I guess, in the industry now for about 6 or 7 years, I've obviously taken the time to educate myself more on nutrition, and more so how to deal with other people's, I guess, habits and whatnot. But I think in terms of my approach now, like it's very much about, the majority of my diet is made up of, and I hate using the word diet for lack of a better word, but it's basically eating things that either have eyes or come from the earth. And like if you're doing that 90% of the time, even 80% of the time, like you're in a really good place, because not only is it going to make be highly, like, high quality and highly nutritious, but it's also going to keep you full for a long period of time. And I think and just being able to avoid labels when you can, like, don't get me wrong, like I'm only human and there's certain foods that I love to eat and whatnot, and that's okay, because that's what keeps everything sustainable. And that's from, I guess, keeping me sane and making sure that I live my life and go out for dinner from time to time. I guess it's the old 80-20 rule, but I think they're probably my two principles. Eating things like majority of your diet from the earth or has eyes, and then trying to avoid labels where you can. And then obviously from a macronutrient profile, like if you're actually serious about body composition training, and like it's not for everyone, but for those people that actually want to see real changes in their physique, like being able to not only pair your training with a high protein diet, because that's what's going to help build the muscle, but just understand, and that's what it comes down to, just an awareness of what you're putting in your mouth. I think for a lot of people, like, even understand, like I had one girl who didn't even realize how much like olive oil she was cooking with, and I'm like, how dense, like in calories, like, like just being able to make small changes in habits with your cooking and that sort of thing. So I think the way that I coach it is I like to try and make it easily digestible, for lack of a better word, but like being able to just have awareness around what you're eating. Like it doesn't need to be something that needs to be super hard. Like it just needs to be something that fits into your routine, like, quite well, and something that you can sustain all year round.
That's awesome, man. Before we move on to wrapping it up, I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have had over the past, like I said, 18 months or however long it's been now since people have been in lockdowns, is whether it be someone who's just a beginner, but probably more so for people like yourself and those that have got a few years of experience of training, is being able to still overload and find ways to challenge themselves in some way or another, which is still aligned with whatever their current goal may be, whether it be building muscle, losing fat, improving performance, whatever it is. What are some of the ways, I don't know how much equipment and stuff you've had access to throughout this period, but what are some ways that yourself and you've given to your clients to still be able to overload or still challenge yourself in some way or another with the training without having the luxury of being able to use heavy loads and machines and a big variety of equipment?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with I guess people who are quite new to training. It's quite easy to overload because the majority of your progression is going to be simply just getting better at fitness. So like, and what I mean by that is just like execution. So being able to, and like for a lot of people that I'm coaching at the moment who are starting quite out, like a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the coaching is about just getting better at the execution of certain movements so that it becomes more easier to, I guess, eventually add intensity from beyond that sort of foundation. I think for the people that have been training for a little bit and they're lacking, I guess they're a little bit lost in terms of like what you said, like I don't know how to progress with only a pair of dumbbells here. And I don't really have much. I've just got a few sets of dumbbells as well. It's about, I'd say the majority of my training at home is focused around a lot of time under tension and manipulating, I guess, slow tempos and sort of fast reps as well, like a combination of both.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. Like essentially, for people that haven't trained with time under tension before, what it basically means is rather than letting gravity do the work, you're essentially trying to slow everything down, which is going to be a lot harder than just banging out 10 reps as fast as you can.
Yeah.
I think on that as well, like people often forget how, I guess, how good the rest can be in terms of being able to manipulate that to see results. So a lot of people when they're training probably just, especially if you're in the gym, you're either on your phone in between sets or you might flicking through Instagram, or you go and fill up your water bottle and you're not quite like, you're just worried about getting 3 sets done. Well, if you actually watch the clock, and next week you shave 15 seconds off, and then next week you shave another 15 seconds off, it's like, God, that can create some serious like progression and awesome gains. Like not only does that like muscle burn kick in even more, but all of a sudden your heart rate comes up as well, and you're like, oh, hang on, what's going on here? Like, so I think they're probably two. And lastly, volume as well, just in terms of the amount of sets and reps that you're getting in as well. Like, so I think there's a lot of things that you can do, and what it actually does if you can stick to those 3 whilst we're in lockdown is when you get back to the gym, it's like a new form of progression that you haven't done in a while. So it can be really exciting to go back to, something else.
Plenty of different avenues. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, look, like I said at the start, I do appreciate you jumping on the show today, man. It's been enjoyable. We're looking forward to hopefully we'll grab a coffee and get a session done at some point once things open back up again. But keep doing all the good work, man. I mean, like I said before we hit record, it looks like all your content and brand and everything is just doing exceptionally well and putting really good, valuable content out there. So I'll have the links to all your socials and whatnot in the show notes below. And make sure you guys check out Jeremy's podcast as well, which again, I'll have the link in the show notes. But man, appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me on board, mate. I look forward to catching up for a session.
100%, man. And for everyone who's tuned in, as I said, jump on board and of Jeremy's social media and whatnot. And we'd love you to take a screenshot of this episode if you've enjoyed the content. Chuck it up on Instagram story for us. Tag myself, tag Jeremy. I've, as I said, about 8,000 times. We'll have his socials in the show notes. And big thank you for tuning in. Look forward to chatting to you again next